Welcome everyone to our September Teach Educational Rounds. Here with us today, we have Alexandra Andrick and Lisa Beedie, who will be presenting on culturally relevant approaches to commercial tobacco cessation with Indigenous communities. So we are going to get started with our Kmh Land Acknowledgement. Kmh is situated on lands that have been occupied by First Nations for millennia, lands rich in civilizations with knowledge of medicine, architecture, technology, and extensive trade routes throughout the Americas. In 1860, the site of Kmh appeared in the Colonial Records Office of the British Crown as the council grounds of the Mississaugas of the New Credit, as they were known at the time. Today, Toronto is covered by the Toronto Purchase Treaty Number 13 of 1805 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Toronto is now home to a vast diversity of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis who enrich this city. Kmh is committed to reconciliation. We will honor the land through programs and places that reflect and respect its heritage. We will embrace the healing traditions of the ancestors and weave them into our caring practices. We will create new relationships and partnerships with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis, and share the land and protect it for future generations. Now, I also just wanted to position myself in this discussion today. So, as some of you may know, my name is Natalie. Like Kmh, I'm currently located on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit, which is covered by the Toronto Purchase Treaty Number 13. I am a third-generation Canadian. In 1958, my grandparents arrived on a boat from Italy while pregnant with my dad, and they settled in the east end of Toronto. My parents eventually met and moved to Aurora, where my siblings and I grew up. And then last year, I moved to the west end of Toronto, where I've been truly grown to appreciate the community and the vibrancy that this land has to offer. I acknowledge the privilege I have as a white settler to live here and be within close proximity to all my daily needs. And as someone with living with type 1 diabetes, I am particularly grateful to have access to insulin and all my other required medical supplies and treatments. So I myself am committed to reconciliation. I continue to listen and learn about the stories and cultures of various Indigenous communities and ensure that their voices are heard and reflected within my work and personal life. So thank you. And I will now encourage everyone to introduce yourselves in the chat and let us know which traditional territory you are joining us from today. If you're not sure, you can visit that website there, www.whos.land, and I can put the link in the chat in a moment. And you're also encouraged to let us know something that you're doing to learn or improve your commitment to reconciliation. So I will give everyone a couple moments to do that. And there's that link there. Thanks, Carly. Welcome from Fort William First Nation Robinson Superior Treaty. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Someone else also located on the Fort William First Nation. Awesome. I'll give everyone a few more moments to share. Kayla joining from Robinson Huron. If you would like to share something you're doing to learn or improve your commitment to reconciliation, please feel free to do so. We'll give everyone a couple more moments to share. Thanks, Heidi, for sharing. Awesome. All right, I'm going to keep going with some housekeeping items, but please do feel free to keep sharing in the chat while I do so. So if you're interested in receiving a letter of completion for this Teach Educational Rounds, please make sure you've registered for the webinar and completed the pre-learning assessment. As well, make sure you've signed into the webinar using your full first name and last name so we can track your participation. And lastly, make sure to complete the evaluation and post-learning assessment that will be emailed to you by the end of tomorrow, and you'll have 1 week to complete that. Just to note that we will also be sending the recording as well as the slides to you all within that email. And so here's a little bit more information on our presenters today. Lisa Beedie is a proud Ojibwe Kwe from Beausoleil First Nation. Prior to her Ontario Health Cancer Care Ontario's Indigenous Tobacco Wise Lead South position, Lisa served as the Health Promotions Coordinator, primarily in smoking cessation at a healing lodge in Southern Ontario for a number of years. She holds an honors diploma from Georgian College's Native Community and Social Development program and a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science. Lisa has been recognized for her efforts in smoking cessation by receiving a Tobacco-Free Champion Award from the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit and was the first recipient of the Teach Project Robin Chapchuk Award in 2016. So welcome, Lisa. Next up, we have Alexandra Andrick, who is a registered nurse that has worked at Kmh since 2006. Alexandra has worked in a variety of psychiatric settings, such as the General Psychiatry Program and the Addiction Medicine Clinic. As a registered nurse in the Nicotine Dependence Clinic currently, she provides counseling, support, and education to clients. She also monitors clients' responses to cessation medications, prescribes nicotine replacement therapy, and co-facilitates therapeutic groups. Alexandra has co-facilitated presentations for clients as well as other healthcare professionals regarding smoking cessation, reduction, and group counseling. Alexandra became a member of the Motivational Interviewing Network of Trainers in October 2014. So welcome, Alex. And just note that our presenters do not have any disclosures to report. And please know that the content of Teach Educational Rounds is centered on evidence-based guidelines from the following sources. Nonetheless, these materials, as well as the verbal presentation and any discussion, represent only general principles, and they do not remove the need for clinical assessments or treatment plans by healthcare professionals. And please feel welcome to use the chat feature throughout the webinar to post any comments or answer any prompts from the presenters. To do this, you can click on the speech bubble icon in the control panel at the bottom. Just ensure to select everyone so that all panelists, hosts, and attendees can read and respond to your comments. You're also welcome to use our reaction feature if you want to send a thumbs up, a high five, anything like that. You're welcome to do so at any point. And just a note that we will be using Slido today, which is a program to help ask some questions. So if you do have a smartphone available with you, that would be helpful, but if not, no worries. I believe that's everything. So I will hand it off to our presenters to take it away. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the webinar.
So hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for taking time out of your day to attend today's rounds on culturally relevant approaches to commercial tobacco cessation with Indigenous communities. I'm going to ask Natalie to go to our next slide. Our learning objectives today are to identify the role of healthcare professionals and health systems in commercial tobacco cessation protection and prevention. We want to describe the considerations when working with Indigenous communities, and lastly, discuss tips for implementing its time with Indigenous communities or community members. Next slide, please. So we're going to start off by locating ourselves. You can see me here over to the left with my lovely niece who I adore. I also have a nephew that I also adore, but he doesn't like to have his picture shown to anyone. So I'll just let everybody know about that. So obviously you can see I'm a white person. I'm an immigrant to Turtle Island. I have both my parents and all my family are of Serbian ancestry. I came to Turtle Island with my parents, who both came from former Yugoslavia and experienced significant trauma in their lives. I myself arrived with them when I was 2 from the UK, where my parents met, after both my grandfathers were allowed to secure safe passage to their families to England after the Second World War. We settled in London, Ontario, on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenapehoik, and Attawandaron. I do apologize if my pronunciation was a bit incorrect. I am always open to correction, and I always thank people for allowing me to learn. It makes me think about someone that Lisa and myself worked with in Moose Factory. One of the participants in one of the sessions we were conducting actually helped me pronounce Attawapiskat. After 4 days, I finally got it. So I appreciate people's understanding if I have said the names incorrectly. From London, we then moved to Mississauga, where I finally settled in Toronto, both of which of these cities are located on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit. I want to let everybody know that I have benefit from living on Indigenous lands all my life. I acknowledge the privilege I have as a white person, and as such, I feel it's really necessary for me to be the best ally that I can be, and also really embody the idea of two-eyed knowledge or two-eyed seeing, where we see the strengths of Indigenous knowledge and ways of knowing from one perspective, and then there's also the perspective of the strengths of Western knowledge and knowing. Putting those both together to promote the best outcome for the Indigenous people that we are working with, as well as Inuit clients that we may be working with as well. Another aspect that's really important is my continual efforts to learn and always learn. And I feel as an RN, this is built into kind of my way of being, because as an RN, you're always learning, you're always striving to learn new things, and you're always striving to work in the best possible way with the people that you are working with. And yeah, that's all I'd like to say about locating myself. Lisa, take it away.
So good afternoon, honey. Bonjour, everyone. My Anishinaabe name is Asins Quay. I'm a proud member of Bosley First Nation. I am coming to you from my home territory of the Williams Treaty. I welcome all that make the Williams Treaty their home, my neighbors and my people. So welcome. That's a picture of me and my mom in our First Nation. And as you can see in that picture, I was skinny at one time and I did have brown hair and I was a smoker. So people say, why would you show that picture of a smoker? Because I can relate to working for the people in the community. So I think it's important to disclose that as well so that people understand where I'm coming from. So that's a little bit about myself. Natalie and Alex shared earlier more. If you want to get to know me more, please feel free to reach out anytime and we can have a virtual chat or conversation. And I do see some people on the webinar that I know. So for those people that I know, hi everyone, how are you? I hope you're well. And thank you for joining us, Miigwech. So that's that. Okay, next. So this is a Slido. If you download it, the QR quote, just take your phone up to the QR reader, and then scan it, and then we can answer this question. When you're a participant in a presentation, what is important for you? So go and open in browser, and then you just type in what, when you're a participant in a presentation, what is important to you. We'll give everyone a couple of minutes. So we have some comments. Practical tips to use in practice, engagement, plain language, gaining new knowledge, clear material, hearing real life examples to really, well, you guys are fast. Practical tips to use plain language, practical tips to use in practice, sense of humor. So that is, for me, my number one I try and do is sense of humor, to try and have some humor in the presentation, because it's interesting, because many people that know me, that really know me, know that I like to fool around, even in presentations, even in the communities. So we always seem to have a good laugh. I know in one particular community I can share is that the health director goes, "Oh, Lisa, I love it when you come, because all you hear in the health center is everybody laughing." So that is a number one thing that I try and implement in the work that I do, is to try and have humor and fun if we can. Hands-on ideas, all of these things that everyone is sharing is absolutely. I always say that I want to be trying to be entertained. I don't want to be bored to death. So that's what I look for in presenting and being a participant in a presentation. So I hope this presentation that we're sharing with you today fulfills some of those comments that you shared with us today. So, miigwech. So I guess we can go on to the next slide. So this one's talking about different First Nation, Inuit, and Métis, about language, where people are located, knowing the cultural diversity, urban, rural, remote settings, ongoing genocide, intergenerational impact on individuals, families, and communities. So we know in Canada, Indigenous people are comprised of three distinct diverse groups: First Nation, Inuit, and Métis. There's more than 56 Indigenous languages that are spoken throughout Canada. Our people live and work in different settings across the country, including urban centers, rural settings, and communities with fly-in only access. Our people live both on and off reserve, and colonialist practice has forced upon our people, such as residential school, 60 scoops, geographic displacement, relocation, intergenerational impact on individuals, families, and communities. And findings from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in 2050 regarding the history of residential school, limiting that legacy of these colonialist process, can be seen through poor health, well-being outcomes among Indigenous people. And it's interesting. I was in a community last night, and in terms of talking about, many people, if you don't know, Friday is Truth and Reconciliation Day, September 30th. And I was talking with the group about what does reconciliation mean, right? So reconciliation, my belief is, has nothing to do with me. Reconciliation has to do with everybody else that is non-Indigenous. But as a Anishinaabe Kwe, I have to do some reconciliation with myself in terms of my own health. And we talked about that reconciliation and what that health impacts on me around smoking cessation, protection, and prevention. So that was a learning that we did in the community last night, and had a topic around reconciliation and smoking cessation, protection, and prevention. So that's good. So I just want you to understand that, as you can see in the chat by people introducing themselves, that we are as diverse uh, as a people as we have similar ideals and belief systems as well. So next. So another Slido question: what constitutes an expert? What do you think constitute as an expert? Knowledge, lived experience, experience, holds lots of knowledge, experience, lived experience, experience in the field, someone with I see someone with broad knowledge, lots of experience, individual that has both knowledge and lived experience, ability to share information, sees all sides, knowledgeable. So when we were discussing this presentation, and I thought it was important to have this question up, and I encourage everyone to continue sharing what you think what constitutes as an expert. And when I think about this question of what constitutes as an expert, I want to make sure that everybody knows that I am an expert in one part of smoking cessation, protection, and prevention. That doesn't mean I'm an expert on everything. So, for an example of this is that when I go into a community, I'm not going to talk really about traditional tobacco because that's not my role. I don't have that expertise. I know a little bit about traditional tobacco, some of the ceremonies, but it's those knowledge holders within the community that makes them an expert. And it would be disrespectful for me to go into a community to articulate that I'm an expert on the ceremonies when I've been to ceremony, but that's not my role. They are the expert, those elder and those knowledge keepers within that community. So I encourage everybody to reach out to their experts within their communities. Or if you're a non-Indigenous person, to ask the community members of, we're going to be doing some tobacco information sessions within your community. I've been invited. Is there somebody in the community that can help around the traditional aspects of SEMA or tobacco? So that's what I want to share, that everybody is an expert and everybody is not an expert as well, right? So I just want to share and to support our people in the communities that are those knowledge holders that have, and when we talk about what is an expert as well, is that just like many of us that are on this call are educated through Western means of being educated in post-secondary education, many knowledge people have had the stringent teachings and learnings as well that makes them carry that knowledge that can support you in the work that we do around smoking cessation, protection, and prevention. So I just wanted to share what constitutes as an expert, and to reach out to those experts as well in the work that we do, because like I said, not all of us are experts. Next. So recognize diversity. Traditional tobacco teachings differ by community. Language matters. And not all Indigenous people recognize traditional tobacco. So depending on which community, and that's the conversation that you have with the person that you're making a relationship with in the community around, okay, what do you think is the most appropriate means of delivering a program in the community? Because if I go to a certain community that does not hold true to the traditional ways, and they're more spiritually in terms of the church, then I'm not going to go into that community and talk about traditional tobacco, because I'm going to take the lead from the community themselves on understanding the diversity of that community, right? And not all Indigenous people, and we can't put all of the, what's the word I'm looking for? All of the onus on the community to understand, to recognize that diversity. We have to learn as well. And some of those can be through conversations at the beginning of introducing yourself to the community health rep or the health director, whoever you may be working with, to have those conversations that you want. And also to recognize the diversity in terms of tobacco. Depending on where you are in the province, not everybody uses traditional tobacco, what you view as traditional tobacco as a leafy plant. I've been in the States and they use what's called mountain tobacco, and it's a plant that's grown on the mountains. Kinnickinnick, red willow, all of those things are recognizing the diversity of traditional tobacco uses. So I just wanted to share that it's not just a pan approach to everything that we do. So next. So traditional versus commercial. So there's many teachings around this, and this is what I'm saying in terms of working with somebody in your community around the duality, because in our teachings, in the Anishinaabe teachings, there's teachings around that duality and understanding the traditional aspects as opposed to the commercial. And everybody knows the commercial aspects of commercial tobacco, all of the ill health outcomes, all of those things. But and this is why I encourage people to use a traditional elder too, to learn and to share with the community around ceremonial and the medicinal purposes of that traditional tobacco, and to know that many people will say, well, you smoke it. There's many forms that how you can use that traditional tobacco. I'll share one fast little story with you. So like I said in the beginning of the slide, I was a smoker for many, many years. I did quit smoking, and when I was in a ceremony, I'll share two stories. One, when I first initially quit smoking, when I was in ceremony, I would not smoke the pipe because I was afraid that I would re-trigger myself to start smoking cigarettes. So I had a conversation with the elder, and they said, Lacey, you don't have to smoke it. You just have to touch it and stroke it. So that's how I learned about that way of doing that, that it's not always necessary to smoke it. And in terms of I quit smoking another time, and I went to ceremony with my mom, and there was about 150 people at this ceremony. And I said to my mom, oh man, when that pipe comes by, I'm going to wail on it like no tomorrow, right? Because I wanted to smoke. Well, wouldn't you know it? 4 people before me, the pipe went out, and the conductor said, I'm not lighting the pipe. So that was the Creator's way of keeping me on that straight and narrow path. And I should have used my traditional tobacco and asked for guidance and support during that time. So those are the learning lessons in terms of the traditional versus commercial tobacco, right? So, and it's a means of communication, you know, and I share that in the community around within our Indigenous population that utilize that SEMA in that traditional way. So I encourage everyone to seek out their traditional elders within their region to learn more about that. So yes. So next. So who sits in the circle? So if I may share, this is a little small teaching, that this circle represents the 4 colors of man in the world, right? Everybody is equal. So when we come together, we're all equal. There's not one person bigger than the other, or that we're all coming in for to learn, share the knowledge, right? So sometimes I want to make it clear that all of us sit in the circle. The community health reps, the community, the person that is conducting maybe a traditional aspect, uh, the public health might be in there. So it's everybody who's sitting in that circle has equal parts and say in that as well, to build capacity. Because I know sometimes uh, I've witnessed and seen that when people come in, they'll just take over sometimes, and then they think that it's okay just to take over. So that's what I'm reminding people to reflect and understand, that we're all sitting in this for the betterment of all. So to build capacity, to have community engagement, health and wellness, and like I said, it represents 4 colors of man, 4 directions in the teachings. And believe it or not, I used this when I was in university in terms of a teaching tool for myself, but that's a whole different topic. So yeah, so miigwech for that. Next.
So thanks, Lisa. I just want to add on to what you've shared in terms of that humor. And I think people really, once you know someone a little, humor can go a long way, especially sometimes when we're working with people who are trying to make a change in their commercial tobacco use. A lot of difficult things have happened to them and they're trying to work through that. And so sometimes it can make things a bit lighter, and it can really be a connector. People always appreciate someone who's real. And when you're a real person and genuine, there's that rapport that can be built. Being humble, I always like to say the beginner's mindset, and that's probably through my work with motivational interviewing, is always having that beginner's mind, always striving to learn from others. Also, to laugh at yourself. And when things are problematic or you've made a mistake, to own that. Because, no one is perfect, and people are really, when you make an effort, people acknowledge that and they understand that. Another helpful thing is to have, to be an ally. So you want to build those trusting relationships. You want to be consistent. You want to be accountable. You want to acknowledge your, for myself, I want to acknowledge my white privilege and power. I want to speak less and listen more. I want to move away from the writing reflex, because if I think about that slide, when we had the discussion about the expert, each person has within them the stuff it takes to make a change. And that's what's going to help people move forward, is by allowing those individuals to share their truths, to share their knowledge, to share how they're going to go about making that change. And so we can be sort of a guide, but the people that we are working with are actually in the driver's seat and have what it takes to make that change. We want to make sure that we, as an ally, or I myself, I take steps to educate myself and not expect, other people to educate me, and be honest, and also kind of work through those emotions that may come up. That's that whole self reflection practice. And then also another thing I didn't add to this slide was the cultural humility, right? Acknowledging yourself, or I myself as a learner, when it comes to understanding someone else's experience, to be aware of systemic biases and my own biases, and maintain respect to myself and to others. And so I think those are important ingredients when you are going into the community. And I can't thank Lisa enough. I've worked with Lisa for a long period of time now, and her generosity and her humor have really helped me in terms of my comfort level, and in terms of, you know, us working together, because we both have knowledge. We both see the importance of incorporating the knowledge together, and then also making sure that whoever is going to be working with individuals, that they have the tools required, and they can make those strategies applicable to the person, to the people that are working with, i.e. making them culturally relevant, or changing what needs to be changed in order to help the people that they're working with. Next slide, please.
So the importance of community, and I always have community first and foremost in the work that I do. I don't call the people I work for patients or nothing. They're community members. They're my people. I gotta work for them. I get paid by my organization, but I work for the people, and that's what I'm reminded of all the time. I've been in this role for many, many years. And I just want to share too, when we talk about, you know, the Smoke Free Ontario Act, I have to think a different way when I'm working with community. So we have those no smoking signs, you know, with the lighter, or the no smoking with the cross, right? So I'm like, what can I come up with that will resonate? What would not be offensive in the community? And this is one of the ways that we came up with it. Our air is sacred, and so is our territory. Please do not use commercial tobacco here. Please smoke 9 meters away. So that's a respectful way for the community to understand the importance of community, right? And that it takes the whole community to catapult of no smoking, and to try and help people not to use commercial tobacco, right? So it's the importance of community that will also help you in the work that we do for the community. So it's building the community, and that's it goes back to the beginning of building those relationships with the elders and those knowledge holders in the community too. So that's part, and it makes everybody the importance of community that will help, right? I remember I got so many stories. I've learned, unfortunately, firsthand of all the things that you shouldn't do in the community. And it was through those relationships that I had, or fostering those relationships, and the importance of how community views things. So, for example, World No Tobacco Day, right? I went into the community, one of the communities, and it never even dawned on me. World No Tobacco. What am I saying when I go into the community with that? Well, tobacco is a medicine. I should have been doing the opposite of that. So that's what I'm saying about knowing the importance of community. And sometimes in this role that I learned so many of Jaganash ways, that I got to be mindful of my Anishinaabe ways, right? So it's learning and building the importance of community, and I'm reminded by community all the time about that. Another thing to be mindful of, importance of community too, of just building up, and that everybody is equal in that circle as well. So I want to share the importance of community, and to utilize the community, because like it goes back to the beginning, they're the experts, right? So next. So Alex, you want to start off with this?
Sure. So when we look at these guiding principles for authentic engagement, they're rooted within the community-based participatory research principles. Um, um, and And when we look at these, we see one of the first ones is relationships. And so it really speaks to this importance of building collaborative relationships based on trust. And Lisa has already said this in terms of, we can't go into various communities and tell people what to do. It's inappropriate and it's wrong. We have to develop those relationships, and we have to figure out ways to communicate effectively to help community members become free from commercial tobacco if they're interested. When we think about respect, we want to respect the Indigenous ways of knowing. And when we want to kind of make this bigger, we also want to look at, who in the community would be very effective to invite, like an elder. Do we need a knowledge keeper, as Lisa spoke about? And also, we want to make sure that we are following traditional protocols, prayers, smudging, etc. And also, we want to make sure that we aren't going in as we are the answer to everything, because we are not. We have, if I think about, what I've learned, I have knowledge in smoking cessation, but that knowledge often needs to be tweaked so that it can work with different members in the community. And that's where we need the Indigenous experts of knowledge and ways of doing things to help that be culturally relevant for the community members. And so that kind of speaks to the relevance piece, where every program is directed and developed by the community, and that they are in the driver's seat. Reciprocity refers to consensus. Sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied here.
Consensus.
Thank you. Based decision making, where collectively things are determined, and how best to implement, and how best to share knowledge. And then responsibility, lastly, is that we want to build capacity within the community by together, all of us working together in the best way possible, so that community members can have the best outcome. And so that's basically, we want to help with capacity building, training, resource development, and ongoing coaching. Is there anything I missed, Lisa?
I just want to add one thing to this. When we're talking about the guiding principles for authentic engagement, all of those variables that are up there: respect, relevance, responsibility, relationship, and reciprocity is embedded in the work that we do. And I'll give you an example of that. So we have many people on this call. I'm sure everybody knows, or if you don't know, about the STOP program within the public health setting within Ontario. So when I started in this position, I learned through public health about the STOP program, and then through Kmh. And I'm the kind of person that always scratches my head and thinks, well, why can't my people have that, right? So in terms of these guiding principles, we had a meeting with Kmh. We talked about the STOP program, and now the STOP program is in many First Nations communities, as well as in the AHAC Center, and it's all based on these relationships, respect, relevance, reciprocity, and responsibility. And when we talk about this, we implemented Ocap Principles within the STOP program within Indigenous population. And the reason why that was a must is to build capacity within the community, that any data is collected through the community, it's their data. So then they have that data, they can access potential funding in the future based on their STOP program within the community. So it's always important, and I encourage everybody to learn more about the Ocap principles in the community. And Ocap stands for ownership, control, access, and possession of any data information. And you'll learn why it's important to implement Ocap principles. Next, tips for working with community.
Yeah. So, you know, it's really important that we consider the social determinants of health. I'm sure all of you are aware of these determinants, and also to remember the effects of colonization. So, you know the history of Canada, strive to continually learn, know the history of the particular area you're working in. So I remember when Lisa and myself were up in Nunavut, I remember researching about kind of the terrible things that happened to the Inuit community. For instance, like people had were taken away if they had tuberculosis, and no one knew where their family members were, or the killing of a lot of dogs because Canada wanted sovereignty of the North. So these are things I did not learn when I was a younger person. And so this kind of information is kind of helps to really understand the depths of intergenerational trauma, to know these histories. And it's really important that we are aware of that. And also the resilience in the communities, in the Métis community, in the Inuit community, in the First Nation communities. It's really important that we are aware of that. I talked a little bit about cultural humility, so I'll just let that lie. And then you've also heard Lisa talk about how these partnerships have developed, where we have the example of stock going into the various communities and helping community members access free nicotine replacement therapy. Also, I can think about the toolkit that we're going to be discussing momentarily and how that came about. And lastly, it's really important to seek training in Indigenous culture, tradition, and protocols as well. And there's a list of areas here. So I noticed we're at 12:47. So I'm wondering if we could just go to the perfect,
Yes.
exactly where I want to go. Thank you so much. So you can see here that we have two pictures of the It's Time manual. There's a manual for First Nation communities and the Métis community, and then we have an Inuit specific toolkit. Now we have a guide that kind of gives an overview of information that can be helpful. Then we have the helper's guide, and this kind of helps whoever is working with a group or whoever is working with an individual. And this is kind of a broken down version of the massive toolkit that has a lot of information about strategies to help people change their commercial tobacco use, how to run group, etc., etc. So when we think about these two It's Time manuals, they were developed in collaboration with a diversity of Indigenous community members, such as healthcare workers, stakeholders, and elders. The Inuit Toolkit was co-created with members of the Inuit community, workers, stakeholders, and elders. And following the launch of the Inuit Toolkit materials, Inuit communities in Nunavut developed their own variations on strategies that were more relevant to their community members. And so this is kind of a classic example. When Lisa and myself went up to Iqaluit, we had a lot of people coming from various communities who were looking at the Inuit toolkit and some of the strategies listed in terms of running groups and what you want to talk about in this group, and how they would change those strategies so that it would be more culturally relevant to their community members. These toolkits were based on the guiding principles of two-eyed seeing, developed by Mi'kmaq elders Albert and Murdana Marshall. And then also, as I said, people can pick and choose what they like, and this can be done in group or individually. Next slide, please. So very quickly, when you look at, so you've got the helper's guide, and you also have a participant guide that people can have access to. So when we look at kind of some of the areas that are kind of helpful to look at when you're trying to change commercial tobacco use, if community members are interested and are willing to come and talk about things, is you want to explore readiness. And in exploring readiness, you're actually using tools to figure out ambivalence. Now, ambivalence is a good thing because people will have, arguments of staying the same and arguments of changing. And that's a good place to be, because we can kind of reflect on those utterances that talk about change, and maybe continual talk about change can help people think about the possibility of changing. And so being ambivalent about quitting or reducing commercial tobacco is a normal part of any journey, any change journey. And it's important to explore it, identify, understand it, and address it. Next slide. So one of the ways that we can look at this is we can give participants a visual. So if I think about in our clinic, if we have people who are not Indigenous, we're just doing our tracking, we're doing kind of talking about, how thoughts can affect kind of ways you might go about doing things or your belief in changing. And so when we think about working with, say, for instance, the First Nation or Métis community, you have the medicine wheel or the drum with the Inuit community. And so we would ask participants to shade the areas of health and well-being that they would need to address in order to feel confident in reducing or quitting commercial tobacco use. And so by doing this, we're putting the ball in the community members' court. They are able to reflect, they have that visual. They can think about, what would need to happen to help them consider making a change. Next slide. And so
maybe we can go on the next one too.
Okay.
Next.
And so thanks, Lisa. So when Lisa and myself were up in Iqaluit, what people used, what a kind of change that some community members made was they were looking at the uluk and kind of filling out the uluk in a way that could help them think about changing their tobacco use. So we can see strength, keeping hands busy, breathing techniques, physical. Impact concentration is higher, endurance. So
this was a tool that they utilized when we gave them the information. This is what resonated with the community. This is a traditional woman's knife, and this is how they implemented our teachings and their teachings in order to best serve the community that they're going to be working with in terms of the readiness, right? Of what that readiness ruler would mean.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. I appreciate that, right? And so we can see the mental, emotional, and spiritual. And there you see like total collaboration, with everybody in that room, making this toolkit come alive, making it applicable to community members. So I'm just going to ask Natalie, how much time would you need? Like, should we stop here? Because at least we have given one example because we're at 12:54.
I just need about a minute to wrap up. So you still have like 5 minutes. Yeah, go for it.
Thanks for that. Okay, let's do the next slide. Okay, so if you wanted to explore readiness in your community, how might you change this activity? Would you keep it, if you were working with the First Nations community, would you keep it at the medicine wheel? If you were working with the Inuit community, would you consider the drum and the uluk? What would what would you add? Would anyone like to either kind of speak up or write in the chat? Okay, I don't think I'm seeing anything.
No, you should have had a Slido.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'll say here is, this toolkit is available through Teach. And really, when you're thinking about how you want to implement a program to help community members, is to really look at, when you're looking through the material that we've provided, that you make any changes necessary so it will be meaningful to the people that you are working with, so that they can connect with it and it makes sense with them. And I think, always having that stance of people have what is needed to make a change. We just need to help them bring that forth and hear them speak their truth, because it's through that speaking they're going to be able to hear the things that they need to do to make that change. Lisa, did you want to add anything more?
Nope, that's good.
Okay, so next slide. So another activity is balancing health and well-being, and that's identifying triggers for smoking and discussing coping strategies. So basically, the idea of asking people, what for sure can you say you're smoking with, or like what behaviors, what emotions, what environmental things make you want to smoke? Okay. And so, and then figuring out ways to address the need that cigarette is meeting in a different way, essentially. Next slide. So once again, the change that was made was that, if you're working with if people are open and interested, you may use the tree if working in a First Nations community or Métis community or
Anukshuk.
Thank you. I hope there's some laughing out there in the web land. And my apologies and my terrible pronunciation. And so people can write down those cues, those times when for sure they're smoking, whether it's an environmental, behavioral, or emotional cue, and they can place this on on one of these items. And then you can see this example. My partner smokes inside the house. I will ask if they can smoke outside. So through knowing these triggers, when you know what's causing you to do something, it allows you to think of, okay, knowledge is power. How can I address this in a different way? And we can be the support to help people find those ways. But we want to encourage, the community members to kind of think within themselves what will work best for them. Next slide.
Let's go next.
Next. Okay.
So this will be all in the webinar that in the meeting notes, since we only have 1 minute left. Next. So there's our Indigenous Tobacco Program. Please visit our website, CAMH's website next as well. The Stop with AHACs, please visit Stop with AHACs at kmh.ca. That's something you want to further interest you. Next. So I want to share that this is the way that I work through the lens, my lens that I work. Sovereignty, vision, spirit, respect, relationships, generations, responsibility, and safety. So I'm just going to leave it like that. Oh, AHACs are Aboriginal Health Access Centers. So those are the lenses that I work through, and please feel free to reach out if you'd like more information on of sovereignty, vision, respect, spirit, all of those things in terms of the work that I go. Next, reclaiming health as an act of self-determination. That's another thing that I discuss as well in the community. Next, as Indigenous or non-Indigenous service providers, we got to try and implement the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action. I'm sure if you don't know, these are in the slides. This will be sent to you to try and strive for these calls of action in the work that you do. Next, the Truth and Reconciliation, other calls. And in terms of like when we talk about the Truth and Reconciliation, I want to share two most calls in health. We call upon the federal government in consultation with, back in the day, Aboriginal peoples to establish, measure goals to identify and close the gaps in health outcomes between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal communities, and to publish annual progress reports and assist long-term trends. And then the other one, call to action number 23, we call on all levels of government to increase the number of Indigenous professionals working in the healthcare field, ensure the retention of Indigenous healthcare providers in Indigenous communities, and provide cultural competency training for all healthcare providers. So I would stress to look further into that. There's many. Ontario Health, we have our own cultural competency. Please visit our website. Next, I guess, I don't think we have a lot of time for this Slido question, but if you feel compelled, what is one thing you learned today that will empower your work in commercial tobacco cessation to support healing, if you feel? And essentially, that's it to wrap it up. We're a minute over. So does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns?
I did see there was a couple of questions in the chat. I know we are over time, so if anyone does need to head out at this point, please feel free to do so. But I think there was one question. I don't know. Oh, you answered what are AHACs. I think there was one a while back. So Lori said that, Lisa, you brought up a valuable point about World No Tobacco Day. Can you talk more about what you did and said, or how you shifted or reframed the messaging?
So in terms of shifting World No Tobacco Day, when I do World No Tobacco Day, I talk about traditional tobacco. I bring somebody in to talk about traditional tobacco. We might give away traditional tobacco, you know. And I was thinking last night about different ways to reach our people. You know, we're talking about tobacco as bad, but it's not bad. When we talk about commercial tobacco, we know the duality of it. Everybody knows the harmful effects, but we don't talk enough about the traditional aspects, right? When we talk about truth and reconciliation, like I said earlier, we have to reconcile ourselves of what that is, right? To forget and put down that way and use our traditional ways and means. So
Thank you.
I hope I answered that question.
Yeah. So if there are any other questions, would it be okay if attendees reach out to you, Lisa or Alex? Is that
Absolutely.
right? Yeah, awesome. Yep. All right. Well, thank you both so much for this great presentation. Very thoughtful and informative, especially ahead of the National Truth and Reconciliation Day on Friday. So thank you both for that. And there's their emails if anyone has any questions. I just had a couple housekeeping items to go through before I head out. I don't know if Lisa or Alex, you wanted any final word?
Miigwech, have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Have a great day.
Thank you. And yeah, so just a couple reminders before I head out. So you will be receiving a link to the evaluation and post-learning assessment by the end of tomorrow. And you'll have 1 week to complete that to receive your letter of completion if you're interested in receiving one. As well, just a heads up about our next Teach Educational Rounds on October 19th on technology-enabled collaborative care for diabetes management. So stay tuned for that registration opening soon. As well as always, if you missed a portion of today's presentation or want to view it again or see a previous Teach webinar, there is an archive list that lives on our website, so you can find that there. But for now, thank you all so much for your participation, and thank you, Lisa and Alex, so much again for your time and energy today. Hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Thank you.
Very much.